Kia ora! This video helps explain what happens when Covid-19 infects a cell and how the mRNA vaccine works. There are three parts to this video. First of all, we'll look at healthy cells, then we'll see what happens when COVID infects those cells, and finally we'll look at how the mRNA vaccine works. Healthy cells. Your cells are very busy places. They continually extract energy from the nutrients you have eaten and use that energy to repair themselves, make copies of themselves, and do all the other things needed to be alive. One really important thing that cells do is to build proteins. In the nucleus, enzymes copy the genes in your DNA into thousands of different bits of mRNA. The mRNA moves from the nucleus to the main part of the cell. This is a one-way process. The mRNA can't get back into the nucleus. The mRNA provides the instructions for ribosomes to make the thousands of different proteins your cell needs to function. After the proteins have been made, they move to the part of the cell where they are needed. Some proteins stay inside the cell, some become part of the cell's membranes, and others move outside the cell. The mRNA is destroyed. COVID infection. Viruses contain DNA or RNA, but they can't make proteins themselves. They're a bit like a small nucleus looking for a cell. The SARS-CoV-2 virus is a positive strand RNA virus. When your cells become infected with a virus, the virus hijacks your cell's protein manufacturing machinery so it can make more copies of itself. The spike protein of a SARS-CoV-2 virus particle sticks to a cell by binding to an ACE2 receptor protein. ACE2 has many jobs in the cell, including helping to control blood pressure. It's found on the surface of cells in most parts of the body. Binding to ACE2 makes the spike protein on the virus change shape, which lets the virus enter the cell. The virus spills its RNA out into the cell. The virus's RNA tells the cell's ribosomes to make virus enzymes, which are proteins that help chemical reactions happen. One of the enzymes makes many complementary, the negative strand, copies of the RNA, a bit like making a mold. Other enzymes use the complementary RNA as a template to make mRNA for more virus proteins, including spike, envelope, membrane, RNA binding, and several other enzymes the virus needs. At the same time, another viral enzyme uses the complementary strands of RNA as a template to make more virus RNA. The virus mRNA keeps telling the cell ribosomes to make lots of copies of the virus proteins. The virus RNA and 4 of the virus proteins assemble themselves into more viruses. Some virus proteins become embedded in the cell's membrane. The new SARS-CoV-2 viruses are released from the cell. They can now go and infect more cells, and the whole process will be repeated many, many times. It takes about 10 minutes for a virus to enter a cell. 10 hours later, there will be about 10,000 new viruses ready to burst out of that cell and infect others. So how does that compare to getting a vaccine? Vaccination. The mRNA vaccine is a little bit like a very tiny part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It has the mRNA template for just one protein, the spike protein, surrounded by a fatty membrane, but none of the parts needed for making new viruses. After your injection, vaccine particles merge with the membranes of some of the cells in your muscles. The mRNA encoding the spike protein is released into the cell. It stays in the main part of the cell. Just like your own mRNA, it cannot enter the nucleus where your DNA lives. The mRNA tells cell ribosomes to make lots of copies of the spike protein. Spike proteins become embedded in the cell's membrane so the immune system can see them. The mRNA is destroyed, along with all the other cellular mRNA. The cells of the immune system make antibodies that recognize the spike protein. These antibodies will stick to any SARS-CoV-2 viruses they find, preventing them from entering cells and signaling to the immune system cells to destroy them. The mRNA vaccine works a little bit like the virus does, except it can only make one very small part of the virus, and it can't multiply and spread through your body. Ka kite, and thanks for listening.